Should we start?
Ready.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Sipho Kumalo. I'm the Professional Manager ET. We'll be presenting to you about the IRBA CPD monitoring. Zakira?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on this Friday morning. We, both Sipho and myself, are very excited to present on you on our CPD monitoring process. My name is Zakira Mohammed, and I am part of the CPD monitoring. Maybe some of you also know me as the ADP inspector. We hope this is going to be a very informative session for you guys today on your CPD journey going forward. Thank you.
Cool. So before you even move on to the next slide, I'll just start by doing a small intro in terms of the process. So as we indicated, today we'll be discussing the importance of the IRBA's continued professional development, which is CPD, the monitoring process in place, and the steps taken to ensure that RAs maintain the necessary professional competence required for their roles. So the objective of the CPD policy is clear: to ensure that RAs are continuously developing and maintaining their professional competence, which are necessary to perform their current and future roles. So not only does this actually help strengthen the competence of individual auditors, but it also upholds and reinforces public trust in the auditing profession. As we know, maintaining professional competence is not just an expectation. It's a personal responsibility for each and every RA. And the importance of the CPD goes beyond just meeting requirements. It serves as a critical safeguard in addressing incompetent or unethical practices, inappropriate judgment decisions, and unintentional non-compliance with the standards. So you can move on to the next slide. Thank you. So as you all know, that the CPD policy came into effect in 2020. And since then, the IRBA has actively monitored the CPD records of all the RAs on an annual basis through a sample process. The monitoring process ensures that all RAs are staying compliant and meeting the required standards. For those who are selected for monitoring, they are required to submit documentation that supports their compliance with the CPD policy. Should RAs actually fail to comply with these requirements, there are consequences which we'll actually dive into later on, where potentially your RA membership may be terminated. The process is as follows. A sample is selected from the pool of all the RAs. Each is actually contacted by email. We request supporting documentation in accordance to the CPD policy. Our emails are very detailed and they provide clarity in terms of what the requirements are and what those supporting documentation are supposed to comprise with. Then we'll send you a reminder in 2 weeks' time, because you have a whole month to make a submission. Before the deadline, we'll send you a reminder to please make a submission. The reminder is generally sent to all the RAs, even if you've already made your submission. Then upon receipt of your documentation, we review for compliance, and then the results are documented. Then a report is actually prepared and sent to our internal committee structures. If there are any outstanding documents or non-submissions, a further follow-up action is actually taken. That's very important. We will email you, we will call you. Non-compliant RAs are notified that their annual renewal will depend on their remedial action. And later on, we'll discuss more in terms of what does this remedial action actually entail. And then registry is actually informed to ensure that the renewal is only processed once the required actions are rectified. Any additional submissions made by RAs are reviewed and the CPD monitoring report is prepared. Finally, a comprehensive report is submitted to the IRBA committees for final review with a list of compliant and non-compliant RAs. Thank you. Next slide, please.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks, Sipho, for taking us through the CPD monitoring process. Okay, so I think following on from Sipho's explanation of the process of CPD monitoring, I'm going to show you on a timeline what our communication and reporting timelines actually look like and what your expectation of these can be as we navigate through the CPD monitoring process each year. So, like Sipho said, after we select a sample, this happens roundabout towards within May or so after our financial year end. Our sample size or our sample selection for the year will usually be set out to those selected between 31st May and the 1st of June. So you will get an email from us that is very detailed, explaining exactly what is expected from you in order to evidence your CPD compliance for the prior year. So our CPD year runs from the 1st of January until the 31st of December. So when you are providing your CPD evidence, we are going to be, for example, let me give you an example. The CPD monitoring process, which begins in May 2025, will be testing the CPD compliance for the period 1st of January until the 31st of December 2024, right? It's a calendar year. So that sample and those emails will be sent out around about the 1st of June. Like Sipho indicated, you will have 1 month. We give you a month's notice to which you can gather and finalize all of your evidence and submit to us by the 31st of June. We will give you a courtesy reminder on the 15th of June to all of you, just to remind you that your CPD evidence and submission needs to be done by 31st of June. It is a courtesy on our behalf, and please don't be alarmed if you do get that email, but you have already submitted. We only actually begin our audit once the month's timing has passed, which means that if you submitted it, it's not a problem. It's just a courtesy email that you're going to receive on the 15th of June. All right. Then on the 31st of June, then we will start working our way through your submissions, through the samples. That's when the audit effectively begins. And we practically have about a month to conclude that audit. So at that point in time, from the 1st of July to the 31st of July, you can expect to hear from us. That is when we're either going to contact you to say, we either have not received a response for you. We'll give you another courtesy email there to say, please submit. Or alternatively, if we've gone through your submission and we feel that you may have been falling short or maybe we require additional evidence on something, in that period, 1st of July to 31st of July, is when you're going to hear from the CPD team with regards to the evidence that you submitted. Okay. At the end of July, we finalize our reporting, which then gets presented to our audit committees in August and is approved by our committees in August. That means that if at that time you were found to be non-compliant, even after communication with you and additional discussions with you, you will be deemed non-compliant. And around about the 31st of August, you will also receive an email from the CPD team, which will say, thank you for your submission. You are either compliant or unfortunately, you were found to be non-compliant, which then puts you into the next phase of our CPD process, which is the remediation process. Our remediation process runs from the 1st of September until the 31st of March. It's a 6-month period, which then we will communicate to all of those who are found to either be non-compliant. And, non-compliant also includes non-responders. If we do not receive a response from you, you are deemed to be non-compliant by the CPD policy. So at that time, from the 1st of September until the 31st of March, we will send you an email at the end of August detailing which aspects of your CPD submission fell short and what you need to work on within your remediation process.
Yep.
And then final submissions need to be given to us by the 31st of March of the following year, which is when we will then finally declare or determine whether we are satisfied or not satisfied with the outcome of that. If at the 31st of March of the next year, you are still found to be non-compliant or are not responding, according to our latest government gazetted laws, your membership will be terminated at that basis. And termination of individuals' RA status can be reinstated within a year if they follow suit to declare that CPD. SK, you want to get in here?
No, you're on the right track. Thanks.
All right. So 1st of September, 31st of March remediation period. If you're still found to be non-compliant, you will be deregistered from the register by our registry department. And at that time, you will then have a year to be reinstated. So that means that you would need to prove compliance with the CPD policy in all aspects for the current year. And if it goes beyond that 12-month period after you've been deregistered, you will have to go through re-registration. You won't be able to just be reinstated. Obviously, that means you would have to have the initial annual payment as well as the initial payment as if you were re-registering for the first time. Okay. Sipo, would you like to add anything within this timeline specifically?
No, I'm fine, thanks.
Okay. All right. So now that we understand the timelines as to when the CPD process works and what you can expect with regards to, the different aspects, let's take a look a little bit about the CPD monitoring verification process. Okay, so once you've been selected for CPD monitoring, like we said, we will be communicating with you in quite a lot of detail. We also include for your benefit the CPD policy, the links to where you can find this on our website. We have a lovely presentation there that you can actually refer back to if you are confused about anything, or you can always reach out to the CPD team. But in a nutshell, the 9 items that you see on your screen right now is what is expected for us to deem you compliant. So I'll go through these just quickly, but in the next slide, we'll speak a little bit about each of them when I discuss how we actually audit these different aspects. So the first one is, we want a description of your current role. All right. So, and that's because the CPD 2020, the IRBA CPD 2020 policy, when it was enacted, we moved similarly to SICA from the input basis to the output basis. So I also want to make that clear because a lot of the times we do get submissions from individuals selected in our sample that still select us or send us evidence that, a breakdown of all of the training courses you attended this year and that equated to 150 hours. That will not deem you compliant with the current CPD policy. The output-based CPD policy looks at it holistically from what is your current role in where you are actually working as an RA, and how does the assessment of your CPD, the activities you need to perform, your developmental areas fit into that aspect. Notwithstanding, though, of course, if you are an assurance RA, especially, there are certain things we do expect you to maintain, and I'll get into that shortly. So let's just quickly look at the list before we go into the detail. Firstly, we need to make sure that you have a very detailed description of your current role, your job description as it is. That must be followed by a detailed self-assessment and development needs plan. And this practically section 2, 3, 4, and 5 and 6 actually is all one plan. So this is what we call the self-assessment and reflective plan. And in the self-assessment and reflective plan, you will have a self-assessment of what your current role is. You will determine what are your developmental needs in this particular role. You will then identify learning activities to meet those developmental needs. You will then complete those needs. And then very, very importantly, I'm going to state this because we place a lot of emphasis on number 5, the reflection on the activities that you perform to address the developmental area. And this is also the most poorly documented aspect of most of the submissions that we have received in the last couple of years. So it is imperative that you reflect to say, well, I performed this activity. Did it actually meet the needs of the development that was required for me to say that I am CPD compliant? And a simple yes or no there is not going to be sufficient. We want to see that you've given some thought process to this, explain how you've now addressed the matter, and then to determine whether is this still a developmental area, is it ongoing, or have you now met this particular area? That forms number 6, all right? And this then helps you obviously revise the plan on an ongoing basis. Also, just to remember that we do expect that the self-assessment plan should be developed fairly early in the year, since this is something you should be conducting throughout the year, since the CPD process runs on a calendar year basis. All right. Number 7, the only mandatory requirement of our CPD policy with regards to hours relates to the ethics hours, which is 3 hours that is required from an IRBA perspective. Okay. If you are an assurance RA, we will expect that you have some evidence that relates to audit and assurance. Obviously, and this actually we will require this despite the fact that you may not even be in an assurance environment at that time. It's because you registered on our database as an assurance audit, as an assurance RA, we will expect some sort of CPD to have been complied with in order to hold that status. Okay. And then lastly, once you've done steps 1 to 8, we would just expect that you would then you need to provide a statement that says you deem yourself compliant or non-compliant based on how you've met section or points 1 to 8 rather. Okay, so the next slide may be a little bit repetitive in some of the aspects and that we discussed now, but I'll go through it again with you because it's very important.
Yeah.
So this is just exactly how we audit the process of CPD compliance. Okay, so like I said, step one, we receive your self-assessment and reflective plan. We first take a thorough read through what is this person's job description, what is their role, where are they working. Then we look at okay, then you identify your developmental areas, which should speak to your current role. It's not something that you would expect to be arbitrary within the aspects, unless you're planning to develop yourself into another role, then express that within your description of your job at the moment. Then we'll assess your learning activities identified. We say, does this make sense? You perform the activity. We look at how you've reflected on that activity and how you've described that. Will also give us an indication as to whether we believe, okay, this actually met the initial goal with regards to the developmental area. And then lastly, we look at if you need to revise the plan thereafter. Okay, so it's literally steps 1 to 6 as per the previous slide that follows on to how we audit this. Of course, we do look for evidence with regards to your 3 hours of ethics that needs to be verifiable evidence. And it also should be noted that the activities that you've performed, we do also expect that you will be able to submit something verifiable in contrast of you actually having attended those things. So whether that be a course certificate, whether it be a register, whether it be the slides with your notes on it, there's various avenues in which you can actually prove that you've actually attended those activities to meet the need. And on our website as well, there is a little presentation which explains to you the type of verifiable evidence that is deemed acceptable to us. Okay. And when we send you the list in the emails, we also direct you to that specific links as well as to those specific attachments. Sipho, you wanted to add something?
And the common responses we get from RAs is that, well, they didn't know that they had to submit this, which is not entirely true, because in our email, we're very clear in terms of what the submission requirements are. So that's always an excuse. The second excuse is to skip through all the steps and just give us an input-based approach. That's also not acceptable, because as you can see, we've got our own work paper that we use. And as a person that's auditing, I have to read step 1 to the final step and make a conclusion if whether did this person actually achieve this step or not. So if you're just taking shortcuts, then and you miss one of the steps, unfortunately, you have to fail.
Yes, 100%. And also, at the moment, currently, we do not have a specific template for you to complete with regards to these avenues. A lot of individuals do submit their SAICA CPD template because SAICA is now also working on the output-based CPD aspect. And from many reasons, it does also assist in compliance. We do accept that, Sipho.
Yeah.
And of course, with the additional evidence of the hours and then, whatever else we ask from a verifiable perspective. So you can submit your SAICA CPD self-assessment and reflective plan to us. We do also, I wanted to also point out that while we do try and accommodate different individuals' challenges, maybe within the time span of the year that we are requesting this, I'm going to highlight to you that your CPD self-assessment and reflective plan is something that you are supposed to and expected to be working on from the beginning of the year. So there's not much pull and when we are asked for extensions because this has not been done, because essentially it means that you've not been paying attention to something that should have been done on a recurring basis throughout the year. So we do, on certain cases, special circumstances allow for, later submissions and so forth, but this is definitely not the norm. Please start getting into the habit of practicing this earlier on in the year, developing your plans so that you have enough time to space out your activities in the year and achieve this within a reasonable time span. Because to come within that 1 month of if you are selected for audit, to try and cram all of these things within there, you are going to find it very difficult to do that. And you are going to find us a little bit difficult in accepting those types of responses or rather queries with regards to extensions for those reasons. Okay. All right. Okay, so just some final notes before I think I'll hand over to Sipho for any final points, and we can take some questions from the audience. So just some things to remember is that the review of the CPD records does include both verification of completed learning activities. I think I've touched on this, and you'll see in the email we do specifically ask for this. We do expect you to document in detail. A lot of the firms also have their own internally generated CPD programs. Some of them are outsourcing them to some companies. They work very well, but we do expect detailed responses and applied thinking when you are actually doing this. The RAs must assess, whether your CPD plan is required to be revised after a learning activity has been conducted. As you already know, your mandatory training for 3 hours of ethics is a non-negotiable. And your reflection on those activities specifically, we do pay quite a lot of attention to that. So please take heed to that. We do also allow non-verifiable activities such as reading articles and so forth to be submitted, but it's not really required by the new policy as such. So you're welcome to include that within your CPD self-assessment and reflective plans as additional evidence if you would like to on that basis. Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Sipho?
I think I just want to emphasize on the fact that non-compliance in this context actually means you didn't meet the prescribed CPD requirements as explained by Zakira now, as per the output-based approach, or you didn't respond to the CPD monitoring request after multiple attempts have actually been tried. That is also considered non-compliant. That's very, very important. So, but there's all those that are non-compliant will have to go through a remedial process. And if they fail the remedial process, unfortunately, will have their membership terminated. That's also very important to always remember.
Okay. Fantastic. Thanks, Sipho. All right, so we've actually gone through our first process of deregistration for those who didn't pass the remediation process now. So this presentation comes in at an adequate timing. I wanted to just look at the chat box quickly, Sipho, to see if there's any specific questions within there. So just give me a moment to work through that. Will a recording of the session be available to us? Absolutely. So we will have the recording and we will advise hereafter where you can find that. A link will be sent to all RAs hereafter. Okay.
So there's no presentation available. With mine, when I clicked on top where there's the names, I saw a presentation icon. So I'm not sure how it's looking on other people's computers.
Yeah, I can see it on my end as well.
But we will send you the slides in any case.
Sure.
Can make the slides available and the recording will be available.
Yeah, yes. The slide deck's already available actually on the website. Okay, so we already do all of this for SAICA. Can we safely assume that this type of report is appropriate for the IRBA? 100%. We do accept the SAICA report with the exceptions of the mandatory requirements from IRBA. Is there a list of non-accredited training presenters acceptable to IRBA to obtain CPD hours? Is there a list of non-accredited training presenters acceptable to IRBA to obtain? I don't think we have such a list. Hey, SK.
No, I'm
There's no
not
list
that I'm aware of.
Not at the moment. Does the recent IRBA roadshows count as ethics CPD hours?
CPD on CPD.
Yeah. So I think if there are any other courses that are provided by any of the other departments within the IRBA, they usually do indicate whether this is something that you can count towards your CPD or not. So please refer rather to those specific aspects and those departments to ask them whether that was actually CPD hours or not. But like we said, also you are more than willing to or more than able to add any non-verifiable CPD hours and attendances within your CPD submissions to us. Isn't IRBA CPD part of ISQM? I'm not really sure what you mean by that, Anna Marie. If you're still on the call, do you want to unmute yourself if that's possible? So the IRBA CPD is required under the resources of the resources section of ISQM, which requires that your staff be adequately trained and complies with their professional bodies. It is also tested, within our ISQM inspections, both from an ADP perspective, I think, and inspections department. But our IRBA CPD part of ISQM, I'm not really sure if I understand that question, Anna Marie. If you could maybe provide some context. Don't know if she's on the call.
Yeah.
Can you please go ahead?
No, I was going to emphasize that it's preferable to do an ethics on specific course that actually relate to audit. So that's very important to note.
Assurance topics like the ISAs, yes.
Yeah.
Can you please check why some of us cannot see the presentation? Yeah. We will share the presentation afterwards. I'm not sure why you cannot see the presentation on your end. You can see it clearly on ours. Apologize for that. Try clicking on the names and there should be a presentation. Yeah, that's correct, Sipo.
Okay, let's see.
Slides will be available. Are there any online ethics courses that we can access on the IRBA website?
Not at the moment.
Not at the moment, yes. Okay, so does the CPD requirements as communicated apply to RAs doing non-assurance work? So this is a very good question that actually came through recently as part of our last monitoring. So I got a call that asked, where's the CPD policy for non-assurance RAs? So there's no such thing as a CPD policy for assurance versus non-assurance RAs. There's one CPD policy and it applies equally to all types of RAs, whether you be assurance or non-assurance. How we evaluate the compliance with the CPD policy will differ based on whether you are registered as assurance or non-assurance, meaning that, of course, if you are registered as a non-assurance RA, when we look at your CPD submission, we are obviously expecting and maybe placing less reliance on the fact that, we would expect to see assurance topics as long as you are still working within a non-assurance space as well. Okay, so it isn't a separate policy. It's just it's just different in the way we evaluate your evidence in determining your compliance. Could you provide more clarity on point 8, evidence of audit and assurance CPD compliance with CPD compliance framework? So that kind of evidence would just be anything related to any sort of audit and assurance topics. So your technical topics, whether it be your ISAs, your IFRSs, IFRS for SMEs, whatever it is, your audit and assurance topics of training and CPD hours need to be done. There's always something new being released legislatively and regulatory framework-wise. We do expect that you keep abreast of all of the changes within the auditing and assurance profession from that regard. So the evidence required there would be, again, attendance, certificates or registers of courses that you would have attended and, so forth. I have a question regarding the ADP. Okay, Jacobus, we'll take that offline for you with the ADP. We'll reach out to you separately with regards to that particular topic. Let's keep it to CPD here. Okay, so I think that's the chat pod, Sipo.
Yeah. Are there any more questions?
Doesn't look like it. Most training does not provide certificates or registers that we have attended the training. How will this be managed? Any thoughts on that,
Um,
Sipo? Because it's very difficult to. We have had instances where people submit the slide decks.
yeah, like even if it's an email that just demonstrates that there was an intention, there was a plan, you're going somewhere, even on a calendar, somewhere somehow there needs to be an audit trail of you actually attending the training without the certificate or the register. If you can provide that as corroborating evidence, we can look at it.
Yeah, or maybe even screenshot the last, usually the last slide will say
Yeah,
thank you for attending the course.
yeah.
And at least we know you made it to the end. Okay. Anything else? Just want to confirm what is considered verifiable. Is it a certificate issued or Microsoft Teams report with attendance or attendance registers considered verifiable? All of the above that you have mentioned would be considered verifiable. So certificate issued, yes. The Microsoft Teams report does warrant an attendance register or actually a physical attendance register. And then, like we said now, in the instances where you are unable to get those, we will accept, for example, slide decks that maybe you have worked on or even screenshots of you having attended and completed certain trainings. So SIPO, for ethics evidence, can we also submit the email invites if there's no register that was signed in the session?
So,
So
but it-
I want to say yes, but it's also fairly insufficient because it doesn't prove that you would have
yeah,
attended the whole thing. So I will
yeah.
say yes, give us the email attendance, but please find a way to prove that you have actually attended it to the end. We would need to see that you reach the end of that actual presentation. And in any way, if you are attending ethics courses, for example, I know majority of people attend the psychoethics courses. They almost always send you an email after that to say that you've attended this or this course successfully or whatever it is. I get those. So something to
And
that effect. Yeah.
And also for ethics, it's a mandatory requirement because we need to actually have that evidence when we're reviewing to see that you actually did 3 hours.
Yeah.
So as long as you can be able to actually demonstrate to us that you actually had the 3 hours
Yeah.
training.
Yeah. And it is your responsibility, to ensure that you are attending the courses that are going to give you that verifiable evidence because we can't necessarily manage that from everybody's avenues as the RA specifically, knowing that you have this verifiable requirement, that responsibility does lie with you. Does research detailed analysis of IFRS or IAS or Company Act count as CPD?
So remember with CPD, it relates to your line of work in terms of what you're doing. As you indicated, Zakira, we look at what your profession is, what industry you're in. So if it's actually aligned to your work, then yes.
Yeah. And I guess you would be able to claim that if you're an assurance RA under
Yeah.
the aspects of what you've done for CPD under audit and assurance, we would accept that, yes.
Yeah.
What is the resolution on one trying to submit the CPD certificates evidence, but all emails keep bouncing back? Well, if you're having a problem with that, then you're going to have to send it to us. Obviously, it must be a size matter on what you're trying to send us. You can reach out to the CPD team to alert us that you're having this issue. We will try and assist you. Either we'll ask you to send it through multiple emails, or we can create a safe sharing link with those individuals who are struggling and who have a large amount of content to share with us. We will be able to then channel that information through to us. So there are ways around that, Derek. Not Derek, sorry, that was Virgil Vincent. All right. Looks like that's it. Any other questions?
Did you provide them with the email address? It's
I'll put that in the chat
cpdadmin at
box.
irba.co.za.
I'll put that in the mailbox for them.
Yeah.
Think you can close if you'd like to, Sipo.
Thank you very much for taking your time. If you've got any questions, please reach out to us. Please don't ignore our emails because from the list of people that were terminated yesterday, now we know that they see our emails because they were able to now come back to us. So don't wait until termination point. Rather deal with the matter. And if you need an extension, which you don't encourage, but let us know so that we can work with you, so that we can guide you, and then we take it from there instead of leaving it towards the end where you now get a termination letter.
Okay, fantastic.
I think that's it from my side. But really, thank you so much for taking your time. We're gonna make the slides available, the recording available, and the slides will be uploaded on the website. Zakira.
Yeah, so we'll decide where we're going to put that. We will send you a link with the details. The
Okay.
slides are already on the website, so we will direct you there. We do apologize for this on that end. I don't know if it's all of you who can't see the presentation or just some of you. I see some of you are also struggling with sound. But it's clear on our end. We will share the recording. We will also share the slides with you. There's one last question in the box. It says, what is the resolution with one who has been terminated, but they have submitted the evidence? If you submitted your evidence and you've been terminated, then you need to contact one of us, because we would have also responded to you as to why you were not compliant. Maybe you submitted and something was outstanding, but you could reach out to both myself and Sipo after the session, and we can assist you. We'll gladly assist you. Virgil from Chartered Accountants there. All right. So guys, then if that's all from your end, this session went a lot quicker than we actually expected. We want to thank you so much for your time this morning, and maybe we'll even consider doing another session a bit later on in the year where we can maybe iron out some of the presentation issues where some of you couldn't see that. But again, if there's anything, if you're confused about anything, you now have met the CPD team. This comprises of myself and Sipo. And yeah, have a fantastic Friday and a great weekend ahead.
Thank you very much. Thanks.